Okay, hello everyone. My name is Paulo, and today I'm joined with
Nathan Gomez. Hello, everyone.
and welcome to the journey. Welcome to our third episode. So in this episode, we will talk a little bit about just the future, what we see technology or where technology is taking us, how it's going to affect our future lives, but before that, I will, in regards to the last topic, which was enlightenment, I will give more of my own personal opinion on what I believe enlightenment to be. And then from there on, hopefully we can carry that conversation into future perspectives and how the future will, or what we consider the future will be like, and what tools will be necessary for us to kind of have in order to create a better future. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I mean, it's very important that wisdom or enlightenment leads us there. That's essential. And I guess you can tell us a little bit more about what exactly enlightenment is from your perspective.
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, when I think in terms of enlightenment, I would say I have more like a Buddhism view upon it. The reason why I respect Buddha so much is because he acknowledges the ability that we all have within ourselves to have the Buddha nature within us. So for me, I see enlightenment more as the realization of the self. Buddhism calls it the Buddha. You can call it the Christ consciousness, or in Hinduism they call it the self. But for me, enlightenment is coming to a understanding and a mastery of the mind, to be able to understand its desires, its pains, and kind of see more like a top overview of everything that subconsciously affects us, and be able to understand it in a more open and loving way. So kind of seeing the whole picture in a more like detached way, and being connected with everything that is within us. Not seeing the self as an I, more than anything as what I would say a complexion, or not complexion, but kind of a connection of everything. So just getting to that realization, for me, that's enlightenment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it, like many things, I agree with you there. One thing that I found interesting that you mentioned in the very beginning, that I would say is not necessarily, or not part of wisdom, at least according to the Bible, is what you said in the beginning with this having the Buddha in yourself, or the
Buddha nature.
The Buddha nature. Yeah, and that is this notion of that goes pretty much against actually what the Bible teaches or what Jesus teaches, and that is that we can obtain perfection out of our own force. And I mean, I know you don't mean like our own force as in I can decide it and I will work on it and I will live a perfect life here, but still you don't necessarily have the notion of we are in need of of a God or anything to help us and guide us towards.
I wouldn't necessarily say that you're not in the need of a God or anything like that. And this is something that at least Tibetan Buddhism tries to like enforce on you, is that without a master, without a guide, you will never be able to reach enlightenment, because it is a master that gives you the capability of sharing the mind with you. It's the one that guides you to those states of mind. So we can see a master as Jesus, we can see it as Buddha, we can see it as any type of monk, any master that allows you to get into that state of mind. But I think the important thing to realize is that that divinity, that self, that, I guess, the true self is more than anything of a collective mind, and they give you the gateway, they give you the key for you to enter those stages. So it's still necessary to believe in something. It's still necessary for you to have an outside influence that helps you teach those minds. It's not something you can achieve necessarily by yourself, or if you could, you would still have to, in a sense, surrender to complete faith. So it still requires a belief. It's not something that can just be attainable by myself and it's just me. I don't see it that way. I do see it as you need someone. But the way to attain it, for me, like I guess for you, would be more through through Jesus and through appreciating Jesus and just what he did, for me, it's more than anything of just a complete letting go and just like, okay, I'm not necessarily in control, but I don't want to differentiate myself from it. I still believe that it's a part of me, that it's a part of everyone, and that we can all attain. Enlightenment is something that we can all attain, and that's something that I want to push forward. Because I don't know, if you see a master as some, like, you have to have a respect for a master no matter what. Whether it be Buddha, whether it be Jesus, you have to have absolutely respect for them. But at the same time, you can't make yourself too small. You have to allow yourself to believe that you, in a sense, have a divine part within yourself. And that divine part is something that the masters can help you realize, but unless you believe it to be true, you can't get it. So it's I think enlightenment is probably the most difficult thing to achieve, to be honest. And it probably, like the Buddha, when he reached enlightenment, he remembered all of his past lifetimes. So I don't believe it's something that just happens instantaneous, but it's something that we constantly work upon. So whether I'll ever reach enlightenment or not, I would like to think I would like to do it in this lifetime, but I no longer want to seek for it too much. I want to just get to know myself, because I think something that is tricky about enlightenment is that, at least that's what happened with my meditations, is that if you focus upon the object of reaching something so dearly, it takes you away from the presence. And enlightenment, at the end of the day, is being able to be completely present with everything that is. So it's kind of like, it's very paradoxical in a sense, but I don't know.
You mean like more as the more you pursue it, the further it gets away from you.
I wouldn't you still have to have an intent to pursue it, but it is kind of like, if you go into meditation trying to say, I want to reach enlightenment, then a thought comes into your mind and you're distracted by it, and you're like, well, I'm distracted by it. Well, I shouldn't be distracted by it. I want to reach enlightenment. That wanting is taking you away from something that you already are. The Buddha nature, the self, is something that is already within you. It's that ever presence. God, the universe, it's always present. It's always changing, but its true nature, it's always there. It doesn't change. So by wanting to achieve something, in a sense, takes you away from that which you already are. So the tricky part is being able to balance being and still pursuing. So that's where I found my practices to be the most, where I've had the most difficulties with, because I got to a point where I was meditating very deeply and I was very present, and then I felt parts of my subconscious self being presented to me. So what I would consider the ego would attach itself to a higher understanding, but it still wasn't what I would consider enlightenment. So then every time I went to a meditation, I went with it in the premise of wanting to reach that. And that wanting to reach that actually took me away from my practice. It took me away from that presence, from that, my true self. So then I had to relearn how to meditate. So I think it's a very tricky process. I think it's more than anything confusing the majority of times. And Buddha spent 7 years trying to essentially live out of minimalism, complete minimalism, and that didn't work out. He went from living in luxury to minimalism, and it didn't work out. And then he just sat in the tree. He was like, okay, I'm going to reach it. He took the decision and he just stayed, and then he got it. And I don't know, I think it's something that, from at least what I've talked to monks as well, that it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of determination. There's going to be a lot of confusion during the way, because you're going to unmask many of the subconscious personas or personalities that you or just emotions and traumas that you haven't necessarily healed or understood previously. And yeah, it's very difficult. So in my opinion, I don't think that's why necessarily a lot of people would go into it or want to achieve it, because it's not the easiest thing.
It's not comfortable.
No, it's not comfortable. It's going to shake you to your knees. It's going to succumb you to, essentially, like, it comes to a point where it makes you just want to completely surrender. And it's that complete surrender of, okay, I might be clueless. So, but yeah.
Yeah. But surrender to what?
Yourself. Like, in those moments when I'm meditating, and I feel my emotions, all those kind of like, what we call, the subconscious emotions that are just there, the anger, the fears, the everything, and the mind always tries to escape them. That's the first instinct of the mind, because the mind wants to protect you. It doesn't want to make you feel bad. It wants essentially to protect you and just feel good. But those aspects of you, like what you would call your shadow side, your light side, for you to actually become enlightened, you have to be able to unmask both of them, and you have to be able to love and appreciate both of them just as equally. You can't love your light side, you can't love the part of you that makes you happy in things, and then neglect the bad side. You can't do that. I would consider them as being little kids that you can't love one kid more than you love the other, because the other one is just going to grow repressive and angry, and is just gonna hate it when they both need love. So if I could encompass enlightenment, one sentence is being able to know yourself thoroughly, appreciate and love all aspects of yourself. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess that was like 10 minutes, which is good. But now we can start just talking about the future and how we would consider, or what I would consider the future to be like, and maybe what you could consider the future to be like. So I don't know if you want to start on your views on the future, or what tools you believe are going to be necessary, or things like that.
I mean, you oftentimes get this question: where do you see yourself in 20 years? I always found this a little bit. This is always a difficult question. What will I do in 20 years? God knows. No idea. And, well, I mean, from my life experience so far, I would say my faith was needed for many things that I went through. And I think in the same way, faith is needed to look positively into the future. So for me, I moved not too often, but I had quite extreme moves. When I moved from Brazil to Germany, was a complete environmental shift, and not just environmental, but also cultural and language wise and everything. I didn't have any friends, and the European culture is not necessarily the most welcoming, to put it friendly. No. I had huge problems, and really I had to deal with a lot of depression and a lot of very dark moments that I went through. But through it all, I don't know, it was always this a little bit of hope that came just from the knowledge that I am created and God has a plan for me. I'm not just here randomly. I am here in this situation, at this place, at this time, because it is supposed to. Because there is someone in control leading me somewhere. And this hope really led me to live through this difficult time. And I mean, a a positive change for me was when I moved from one school to another. So in Germany, when you do Realschule, you finish at 10th grade, and after 10th grade you can either go to work or you can continue school on a gymnasium to get the next higher educational graduation in order to go to university. And so I did that, and because of this shift, I had different people around me, a different environment, and I was more able to be myself. I could go out from the old environment where I had been in elementary school and let's say middle school. Yeah. And after high school, the next positive thing was for me to go visit a Bible school, and there was a time of healing, a time of open up, and where I could really focus on my relationship with God and with other people as well. And I mean, those things, I believe, good faith, good relationship with God and with others, is what really prepared me to be in this situation that I'm in here right now, far away from home, studying in a different language with different people. Here in this place where we live, Paolo and I, we constantly have new people moving in, other people moving out.
Yeah.
And not really that stable environment, but it's very I find it, because I have this stability in my faith, I can say I can stay here, I can stand, and even though many things around me change and challenge, and I think this is really what enables me also to look further into the future. And so I believe wherever I will be in 20 years from now, I think it will be a place where God wants me to be, and that God will lead me all the way until there.
Yeah. So, I guess in my perspective at least, kind of very similar. I've always believed that no matter what happens in life, or at least for me, I wouldn't necessarily say much it was my faith that made me, I guess, adapt so much in life, but more than anything, there's knowing that normally things tend to work in your favor. Problems solve themselves with time, and that a lot of the things are really just temporary. So a lot of our problems, a lot of the things that we go through, are actually for what I believe are actually meant there to teach us lessons. So the way that I've always viewed life is as any experience, whether it be inner or external, is there to teach you a lesson if you're open and receptive of it. So I guess that mentality of allowing myself to really understand how my environment changes me, or just everything that is going through is actually trying to teach me something, has helped me through a lot of things. And I think in the future, the ability to reinvent yourself, to be able to see things in an optimistic scenario, are one of the most important tools, because I believe we're heading into a very difficult time economically. People want change. People in our generation want change. There's a lot of people that are going through what I would call spiritual awakening. Or spiritual awakening is nothing else but a realization of the self. So you see it a lot in media, for example. Kanye West, I would consider as going through a crazy ass spiritual awakening and not being able to maybe handle it so correctly, but still trying to oppose the system that has been inflicted upon us. So you see Kanye West, when he was given an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, he was talking about how, okay, these personas that I built, are they mine? Am I doing things because people would have wanted me to do? So just questioning a lot of things. And I think right now we're in a stage where people are questioning a lot of things. The way that the government has been run, whether the banking system is the proper one for us. And you see it with Bitcoin as well. So there's this kind of big emphasis of taking taking control out of a certain amount of people. We want to essentially equalize the field, because we realize that, unfortunately, as human beings, we can't give that much power to an individual, because power corrupts. So we have to share the power that we have. So the way that I see the future going is more of an equal future, more of equity, and just really allowing people to have the most, what I would call the best opportunities available to them. So, but with that being said, we also have technologies coming in, like artificial intelligence, and these technologies are going to have a very big impact on the way that we live life. They already have a big impact.
Yeah.
I mean, even the things you buy online, Facebook, Google, like you are the product of them. So many of the advertisements that are done to you by Google or Facebook are done through machine learning. So it imposes a question of, am I buying this because I want to buy it, or because someone else is trying me to buy it? So I think our life is becoming, in a sense, very controlled by these organizations, and they're getting a lot of power. But these organizations can also do very good for us. Like, I think one of the most difficult things about human beings is we struggled so much to make decisions. And in at least nowadays, we have so many options. I don't think we've ever had so many options in like ever before. Like, we can go to the store and you can buy anything. So anytime is decision after decision after decision. So I think our capability to understand what it is that we want, believing in ourselves and pushing for it, is going to be essential for the future. But more than anything, the most important thing is our relationships with one another. That's what's really going to stand out, because the majority of jobs that don't require human interaction are going to be taken by computers. So we're going to have to adapt to jobs that require one-to-one interaction, that require humanism, that require us to be human and empathetic. An ability that I believe we have kind of lost. Our emotional intelligence and our capability to feel empathy for others has kind of, in a sense, become almost null. Once you constantly see bad stories in the internet or the media or anything like that, they don't necessarily feel real anymore because you're used to them. How are we supposed to have empathy for people that are in war or that are suffering if it's something that we constantly hear about? It just feels like another day. But once those things start affecting us, once the jobs are starting to be taken away from the people in Western society and they start struggling, then there's going to be a shift.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you're making there, and that is not necessarily that we see too much of war and of tragedies and everything. I think the problem is more that it's actually not affecting us.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a little bit difficult to call that a problem, but it actually really is, because since we don't need to be empathetic, or we don't need to care for one another. I mean, I would say Sweden here is one of the best examples, one of the leading examples where the wealth and the where the state takes care of every individual so much that really not even families need to, like, parents don't need to support their kids financially at least to go to university.
No.
Like, even we who are actually not Swedes, we can come here and apply for CSN. We can get support from the state just because we're studying here. We're not depending on one another anymore.
No.
And in a way, it is amazing. It's great. Yeah. It's great to be independent. The government should help the people. Yes, and the interest of the government should be to help the people. But one of the sociological results of that, or what our society is doing with it, is actually procrastinating? No, not procrastinating. Developing. It's developing certain yes, certain abilities, certain certain things like empathy or just spending time with one another.
Developing or
It's no, not developing.
like taken away?
Yeah, well, what's the opposite of developing?
Regressing? Or
Regressing.
something like that.
Something, yeah.
Essentially, since we don't need to commune, our if we believe that we're going to be safe no matter what, we don't rely upon people that much. So our ability to rely upon another and feel empathy for one another is something that grows. Emotional intelligence, just like any type of intelligence, is something that needs to be worked upon. It's something that the mind is like a muscle. If no one has ever showed empathy to you or no one has cared for you, it's very difficult for you to care for others. So in a sense, I think what you're trying to say is, or from what I understand at least, is that in Sweden at least, since people when they grow up, they don't necessarily feel like they need to have very strong relationship with their parents, because no matter what, they have this, I would say, like subconscious belief that everything will be okay. No matter what they do in life, they will be fine. So if we're afraid of failing, or that we might not necessarily, or that we might need help in the future, that's where we create communes. We create communes to help one another. That's how we form the empathy. But I think it's important to understand that whether our government supports us and we can be successful, it is still fundamental for human nature to create those communities.
Yes.
Because us as humans, we are tribal people. We cannot survive by ourselves. We constantly seek affection. So our own ideas of thinking that we're going to be better off just by doing things by ourselves is actually detrimental to our society and our longevity, because we want to form meaningful relationships. We want to be of help with one another. Those are things that actually stimulate us and make us happier as human beings. So I think, it's kind of like if you're a millionaire, you can be a millionaire, you can have all the money you want, and you might still not be happy, because happiness is not just the money. It's not just your safety. It's everything else. So it's important to form good relationships with people, form communities. And I think that's something that we need to emphasize more, at least in the future. Because, and I think I think a good example of a country that kind of has created communities very well would be Portugal. Because when you look at the drug crisis in Portugal that they decided to stop treating the drug addicts as addicts and actually start healing them. So stop making the drugs illegal, so discriminalize all drugs, and provide them a community where they can talk to and heal themselves with. Because I believe an addiction comes down to a part of you that wants to be in a community that feels isolated. So because you're isolated, you're trying to form a relationship with something else, whether it be alcohol, whether it be cigarettes, whether it be heroin, anything else that numbs you down from the kind of like inescapable feeling that you're alone.
From reality.
Yes. So and the reality is that we don't want to be alone. No matter what. As human beings, we don't want to be alone. That's why we look in the skies for extraterrestrial life. That's why we create all these things to connect ourselves, because we hate being alone. There's something fundamental upon us that we just don't like sitting there by ourselves. We can do it for a certain period of time, but you kind of get tired of yourself after a while. You need to be able to talk to us and be like, okay, well, I'm entertaining myself with this person, then I go entertain myself with this other person. So it's important to form the communities, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for the future at least, I find it's kind of the way the governmental institutions are right now. I don't think we are prepared for the technologies that are arising. I think we are focusing too much on the technologies and too little on the social effects that they're having, and we're not necessarily evolving our government with the technologies. The technology is going at an exponential rate, but our human relationship and our spirituality is not catching up at the same time. Technologically, we're very advanced. Spiritually And community-wise, we're not advanced at all. Yeah. You can't have these technologies without having a certain a spiritual maturity collectively, because that's when we create wars. That's when we create weapons. That's when we create all these things. And unfortunately, right now, we're in a point where artificial intelligence, if it is developed thoroughly in the next 5 to 10 years, and we still haven't evolved spiritually, collectively, as a I wouldn't say as a nation, but as a planet, if someone decides to use this technology against humanity, we're doomed. We really are. Yeah. So it's important to start talking about these things. It's important to gain a maturity and a sense of responsibility. We are responsible on how these technologies are used. So we have to constantly reevaluate them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, technology is nothing more than a tool. Yes. It is a tool, and depending on how you use it, it becomes good or bad. Yeah. And this is where I find it important that when we look into the future, we don't only have to work towards a future where we're more united, I don't know, country or culture wise, but I think also belief and value system wise. So I believe where faith or religion, where it comes into play, is by giving us a certain value system, a certain system of this is good and this is bad. Good is whatever brings our society, our culture forward. Yep. And as long as we don't find a good
middle ground.
Well, middle ground or like a unified belief system, I don't believe that we will have the unity to go in the future and to.
Well, the thing about that is, I still think you can have different beliefs. Like, we would consider like spiritual beliefs on what you believe to be God, or just your own beliefs in the universe. Mm-hmm. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that we can still love and appreciate one another. Like, a lot of wars and a lot of conflicts has been caused by, in a sense, religion. That separation of, well, I believe this to be better, and then, oh well, I think this is better. But which one is better? Like, it might not matter. It might not matter at all. As long as we're happy, as long as we're able to live in harmony with one another, it doesn't matter what others necessarily think. Because fundamentally, as human beings, no matter what our belief is, we all want the same things. We all want connection. We all want to feel appreciated. We all want to feel safe. Those are the things we want as human beings. Everything else for me is just complicating the whole business. Mm-hmm. It's just like, okay, like.
And I mean, I'm not talking about, the details. Should you get baptized as a child or not? Mm-hmm. I mean, we can discuss about it, but I don't think, at least, okay, for some people, this is significant. For me personally, this is not. Yep. But, I mean, I'm not talking about this, like whether there's one God or a billion gods or whatever. What I'm talking about is, things like, do humans have, what is it called? Does every human being have an equal value? Yeah. And I mean, this is something that, we in Europe came to, but if we look at different parts of the world, this is not a human-wide thing. No. And even in many places in Europe, this is not the same thing. And I mean, especially when we look into here in Europe, where right-wing parties get more and more support, that where racism is like starting to become public again. And it's terrible things. Like, especially in Germany, it's insane how the right-wing party is getting more and more support, and more and more people are denying the Holocaust and things like this, it's terrible. It's horrific.
I think, and something that I think is important to understand is that I believe at least one of the main reasons why we dehumanize or we feel like as some lives are less important than others is essentially because of media and movies. Like, a lot of us are growing up with American movies. A lot of us are growing up with like just Hollywood movies. Mm-hmm. So Americans have, in a sense, indoctrinized this belief that American lives are kind of supreme in a sense. Like everything's like, oh, this American hero is gonna come here and blah blah, and it's all bullshit. Like I'm sorry, but it's all bullshit. Like American history is only 300 years old. It's not that it's not a country that has been here forever and ever, and it's a country that has raised a lot of racism. So, with that being said, I think it is important to realize that all lives are just as much value. And it's very difficult to see another human with the same value if your government is constantly teaching you that your life is more important than others. Yeah. If you're that sense of patriotism is actually, in my point of view, taking away humanism. We have to understand that people need some more stuff than others. Like, there's third development countries where a lot of people, they just want the same thing as one another, but we never get to communicate with them. We never get to talk to them. We never get to understand what's important to them because we don't care. Like, at the end of the day, it comes down to, do you really care? Yeah. Like, they give you false hopes of like, oh, you have this commercial on TV where you can help this black kid and it makes you feel sad. And it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to give my money. I kind of feel okay. That doesn't help. That helps a little bit, but it doesn't really help. No. So we need to be able to connect with these people, to actually connect, not just see what the media is telling us and be like, yeah, that's completely fine. No, really connect and understand what they need, and allow ourselves to understand the privilege that we have. Like, privilege is something that Americans don't want to see. Like, when anyone talks in America about white privilege, they get defensive. Like, wow, well, why is it my fault that I have privilege and this other person doesn't? It's not about whether you have privilege, or it's not about that. It's just about realizing and for you to be grateful for the lives that you have. Yeah. If you're grateful for the opportunities that are given to you, you want to give those opportunities to others as well. You didn't do anything to deserve those opportunities. Nothing at all. You were just born into that family. That's it. Nothing. You were given a head start in life. What are you going to do with that head start? Are you going to make something meaningful out of it? Are you going to help people with it? Or are you just going to sit back and say, well, I got this head start and I'm not going to do shit about it? We have to do things about it. Because the thing about it is, there's so much untapped potential in the world. We don't know whether the next Albert Einstein might be living in Africa. We don't know whether the next genius that can help us discover the universal theories of the world might be living in a third developed country. We simply don't know. And if we don't allow everyone to fulfill their potential and to really be able to work upon it, we're bound to be mediocre for our whole life.
And I mean, I find it very nice how you say it. It's like we have to care about people. What to me is important is we don't need to care, you as an individual care about the entire world. Mm-mm. We all have our place in lives. We all have our surrounding. And I mean, Jordan Peterson has this, that how do you want to bring the world in order if you can't keep your room in order? Yes. And so, what I find important about this is start small. Look at, first off, your room. Do you keep your room in order? Do you have books or paper all over? Your clothes from a week ago are on the sofa and some others on your bed and your socks under the bed and whatever. Like, clean up your room. Bring your closest, your most intimate environment in order first. Yes. Then focus on maybe your family, your closest surrounding. whether it is your family or your good friends, your school. But I mean, even the school is already a little bit outside.
Yes.
Like, only focus on your closest friends. Then go further. Your job, your university, your school, whoever is out there who you don't have a personal relationship with. Lastly, and I mean, it doesn't say you have to do it in those orders, but this is the more, I would say, difficult one, the more general one, where you really care about who is out there, who is further out, who is in the world. And I mean, of course, you can, if you have the freedom to do so, you can take people who are in a different country and make them to your closer environment. You can surround yourself with certain information about or certain things that is happening in a certain country in Africa, and make this, whatever, this place or an organization that is helping in that area, make that part of your closer environment. But that means that you focus on that. You don't just say like, oh yeah, like once a month I will pay that organization, and the rest of the time I'll invest a little bit in my job, and then I'll spend some time with my friends. Like, bring it in order.
Yes. And it's really about the inside-out approach at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And be real as well.
Yeah, like there's so much you can do.
Yeah.
And there's so much you can't do. So, and if you, for example, and I saw this video on Facebook the other day, and it was this guy talking about Instagram influencers. For example, an Instagram influencer, someone that has 1 million views on Instagram, is able to influence people's life very much. But unfortunately, what he describes in the video, these so-called influencers that are actually meant to help people are doing nothing else but giving them a false perspective of a unrealistic body to achieve for 99% of the people, an unrealistic life. So things that are not real. So you as an influence, you should influence people in the small steps. Influence them to believe in themselves, to help themselves. Don't give them this image of this is what you should be. Give them the tools for them to allow themselves to get to that point.
But to be honest, I believe why those influencers are so big is because we like it. Because it looks easy. It looks attainable. It looks
what I'm saying is, don't call yourself an influencer if you're not influencing people to do better.
Right.
You're just a public figure.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between a public figure and an influencer. Mm-hmm. You can be a public figure.
So they call themselves
like Instagram influencer. And it's like, come on, man, that's bullshit. So, and it's the same thing. Like, a lot of them probably started small. They started working on themselves. And they started to do things. But somehow along the way, they just went too selfish. Mm-hmm. So, no matter what in life, if you do something that attracts attention, you're going to, in a sense, get more recognition. But with that comes a power. It comes a power of either using that recognition and using that capability of communicating with people in a loving way that is meant them to help them, or using for your own benefit. Mm. For me, I think the best thing to do is to spread a message of positivity. Mm. So I believe a lot of the artists in Hollywood and just influencers, really, they have such a power to actually let people believe that we can change the world, make them see another perspective of life. But they don't do that.
Yeah. And I mean, what I find important is you can change how you appear to others and everything. Mm-hmm. But I think where you should actually start working is what influences you.
Yes.
So if you want to be a good influence to others, make sure that whatever influences you, whatever you surround yourself with, is not a bad influence. Yeah. So, for instance, these influencers that you talked about, if you who is a listener here watches whatever the whole day, certain people who are just whatever, showing beauty ideals, or whatever, gamers who are whatever, like doing their esports and everything, it is amusing. It is a nice thing to do. but you are not surrounding yourself with something that is building you up. You are just consuming the whole time.
Yes.
And so my suggestion would be to really look into what is it that I'm surrounding myself with, and what influence can I take in order to myself step forward, become a better man, in our case, a woman, or just a better human being. And also because this in return will make you an influence for your surrounding.
Yes.
Because, I mean, there's only so much that you can change yourself. But by changing the input, the influence that you have, you will have a much bigger change on your behavior.
Yeah, of course. It's like your diet.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you eat, anything you really indulge yourself with is going to build you. And I think there's like quote that says, the books you read, the opinions you listen to, the things that you work upon, that's going to essentially build the person that you will become the next 5 years. Because we build ourselves slowly, but it's like a habit. It has to form. So if you're taking in just things that are not beneficial, if you're taking in violence and just surrounding yourself with that, you're going to become a violent person. Sooner or later, a part of you is going to believe that is normal, and you're going to attune yourself to those frequencies. You can think about it as, I like to think about it as frequencies and vibrations. If you think about something and you're repeating it and you're repeating it and you're repeating it, it's going to create a pattern. And that pattern is going to become a part of you. And then from there, you're just going to act upon. And then it might create a persona that might not necessarily resonate with who you are as your true self. And then might create problems later on in the future. So what you consume, what you listen to, everything, like Nathan said, is extremely important. Sometimes I'm not saying don't consume at all. Like, okay, you can consume for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can distract your mind. You can have a little bit of fun and just laugh it off. But it's how you take the information. Are you taking it as, oh, wow, this is something very important? Or are you taking it as, this information is just kind of like pastime?
And I mean, even if you don't take it as something serious, if all you do is watch 5 movies a day, that's like it's not necessarily about your attitude towards it. It's more, or additionally, I would also say, is the amount.
Yeah, of course. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you watch 5 minutes, or if you consume some bullshit shit for 5 minutes, also just like realize, hey, I'm consuming some bullshit thing. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's difficult, and I mean, I think one of the things that I keep trying to work on, and then I keep failing, but I really just want to nail it down is, and okay, this is something that I tried to go on my Instagram, and I think I follow like 700 people. The majority of them are just hot chicks from when I was in high school, and that's all I wanted to follow when I was in high school. It's just hot chicks, and I think I did it like 5 times where I sat down and I unfollowed like 500 people. And then my Instagram would say that I only unfollow like 200. So I would try to do it again. And it was the same pattern over and over again. So it wouldn't let me actually unfollow all the people, which is very weird. Maybe there's like some glitch with the servers, or I don't know. But anyways, for me, it's like something that I've been struggling with lately is realizing that I have a social media addiction, and I take it might not necessarily even be like how much I take into it, but it's this constantly seeing people's life and then subconsciously comparing my life with other people's life, and just kind of like a distraction. Like anytime I'm starting to face a problem or I have to do something, I procrastinate into that because it kind of feels safe. There's comfort there. Like, okay, well, I can just go into the safe step. So I'm trying to constantly reevaluate that, and it's taking now so much of my space where I want to like just remove it, but it's a step process, I think. So yeah.
And I mean the first and most important step is to realize what is it that I'm addicted to, or what is it that I have a problem with, and then from there after you. So we have in Bible school I learned this, that basically sin or a demon has power over you as long as you don't know its name. Yeah. And that was something, I mean, when you read the Bible, you see stories about Jesus driving out demons and everything. We can discuss another day where the demons are real or not, or spirits and everything. But really what is important is, if we take demons as a picture for bad things in your life, as long as you don't know the name of it, it will not go away. As long as you don't know what exactly it is. And with name, I mean like not whatever, like Peter or whatever. Yeah. Like, what is the essence of it?
What it encompasses.
Exactly. And so the most important thing is really to be honest and true to yourself, or have people around you that are allowed to give feedback to who you are and what you're doing. So, because oftentimes it's very difficult to see and be honest with oneself, to see certain things. And so when you have friends, allow them to give feedback to you, also to criticize you. I mean, in a way, this is what good friends should do anyways. Mm-hmm. Because really, if no one tells you that certain things are going wrong in your life, you cannot, or let's say it this way, if you don't realize things that are going wrong in your life, you're not moving forward.
Yes, exactly. And I find that interesting because, like, or at least like the demon's name thing. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Annabelle.
No, I haven't.
Right, I don't know if it was Annabelle or The Conjuring 3, or I don't remember what, but I just remember right now, just right into my mind, that it was just like the nun, essentially when they kill the nun in the movie. And the way to kill the nun actually was by knowing its name. Once the lady knew the name of the demon, just said its name and it died. Yeah. So I don't know. I just like to. It's funny, like the similarities between all the things, just like connecting the dots. Something that I didn't know before. And I was like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. So the thing in the Bible is that Jesus, he drew demons out without knowing their name, and that was like one of the things where the Jews, like, oftentimes I get this question: why do people say that Jesus is God? Well, essentially, because Jesus had power over the demons. He could say, or he could look at the person and say, this is the demon that is in there. And so he could drive the demon out. Yep. And for the religious leaders, this was an obvious sign. This man is more powerful than the evil that is inside of those people. But yeah, that's a topic for another time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess getting back into the topic of the future, at least, we're going to get to a point where next 5 to 10 years, like I said previously, a lot of our jobs are going to be not taken over. They're going to be facilitated quite a bit by artificial intelligence. So we might not necessarily need, as a society, to work so much. So when you take away that necessity to constantly be pouring essentially your whole life into work, we're going to have more free time. So then the question arises at least, is what are we going to do with our free time? When we have the resources to be able to work upon our hobbies, when we have the resources to grow and do things like that, are we going to try to innovate and come up with new solutions and just be more creative and more passionately, or are we just going to consume? This is a road where we're going to have to make a conscious decision, because we're going to have more information than ever to consume, but we're also going to have enough time to be able to grow ourselves. So one of them is going to make you live a life where you're going to stay mediocre in a sense. And, by consuming, I don't, like, if you want to work on yourself, You can consume right information. You can read. You can learn. That's good consuming. But I guess when I mean consuming, I just mean like worthless, just videos or things that might necessarily facilitate you in your life. So we're going to become or get to a stage, like I said, where we're going to have more free time. And it is important that we understand how to spend that free time. And even now, for this present moment right now, it's how do you spend your free time? Something that we have to work upon constantly, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the thing with the consuming is, even if you consume the right information, like you read a lot of books, you watch a lot of movies that or videos that where people talk about how to live a good life and everything. I mean, if you don't go out, if you don't live with people, like it's not just about consuming, it's also about using what you consume. It's about going out.
Nature.
Huh?
Consume more nature.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Like, you have to find a balance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can sit in your room, you can read for 3 hours, you can work on yourself for 3 hours, you can grow with it. But if you have no one to talk about your new gain knowledge, or no one to share it with, or you try to help others with, that knowledge is not going to do anything. You're just going to sit in a mountain of knowledge being completely depressed and lonely. So we also have to be able to create communities where we can, in a sense, share our passions and really help people find their passions as well. Because I think that's something that we all struggle with dearly is, what are my passions? What do I love doing? Where do I want to put my time and effort into? Because at the end of the day, that's where the future is heading. Where technology is going to allow us to have more free time than ever. Many people don't like free time because they don't know what to do with their free time. So I think it's important to think about these things now, at least, to work on them slowly, so that we're prepared for when these things happen.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, we're not just there yet. I mean, we are there, like, we are at a very good spot here in Sweden. As we talked about earlier, we have a enormous freedom.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we still need to also look forward. We need to look into how to finance ourselves, how to do the things, because we're not just there yet. But we're getting there, and it's important to start working on it and start working towards a society where we allow one another to live up to our potential and to live in the way how we are as humans.
To find, I think this is something that I saw it in a TED talk, and this I think it was like a Japanese researcher or something, but he worked in MIT and the University of Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and he's been driving in artificial intelligence for quite a while, and he talked about how he worked from 9 to 8 or 9, something like that, 9 to 6, 6 days a week or 7 days a week or something like that.
Yeah.
He was like, well, now that technologies are coming, I still want to work, but I also want to have more time for my family. I want to create those, because he focused so much. The whole purpose of the TED Talk was that he focused so much upon his work that it drove him away from what it meant to be human. So he said, AI is really here to facilitate the things that stop us from being human and rediscover what it means to be human. Because, I mean, I think as human beings, we have great capabilities of feeling empathy, of experiencing different things. And at the end of the day, what we seek for in life, whether we go dancing, whether we go study, whether we go give a speech, whether we go ride a roller coaster, it's experiences. We live life for experiences. That's what human beings live for. We live for experiences. So it's what type of experiences do we want to have in the future? Do we want to have experiences where we feel lonely, or do we want to have experiences where we're connected, where we feel empowered, where we feel creative, where we feel like we're helping others and being helped at the same time? So when we have that free time, I think it's important to create experiences that are beneficial for all of us. Because that's what makes us humans, our ability to experience things.
And I mean, I find it interesting what you said with we have to rediscover what it is to be human. Because really, up until now, I would say like within the last 20, 30 years, all over the world, we weren't able to live, to live freely in a way. Or not up to 20, 30 years, maybe. When was it that the middle, like the semi-wealthiness here in Europe, when it started? Was after the Second World War? 50 years ago?
Yeah, but then you also had the crisis not so long ago.
Yeah, that's true.
So
but
it's kind of like fluctuating, still like
around this, like that was when humans still had to fight a lot, had to work. They were dependent, and I mean, to a certain degree, we still are nowadays.
And it's still important.
And I think
work,
that exactly that even in the future, when we have the freedom, when AI takes over a lot of things, I believe humans will still need to work, or at least
work on something they're passionate about.
There will be new problems arising, and I mean nowadays there's like machines are taking over so many of the manufacturing jobs,
mundane jobs, so what I would call.
At the same time, our society is first of all getting older, and secondly, also a lot of people with health issues. It's becoming more and more in our society, and those are things that I believe we have to shift our attention to, like away from like, oh, I can't work at my job anymore. It's like there are many new jobs that need to be taken care of. And I mean, my father, he works in a kindergarten, and they continuously don't have enough people. I mean, in Germany, they're trying this now to implement, or I don't know if they're still trying or if it is already up, that every kid from the age of 3 at least has the opportunity to go to a kindergarten. But there's not enough personnel. There's not enough people educated to do this kind of job. And while, I mean, many people maybe don't want to work there, I think it is what we need to shift our attention to.
Yep. I agree. Because, I mean, I think something important to like understand as humans is that we still want to work. Because work gives us a sense of satisfaction.
Work is a part of human being as well.
It is. It really is. So we need to, I guess, appreciate also the work that we do. So if we're doing work that is providing good to people, then I think that's the best thing. Because at the end of the day, we tend to love the things that we're good at.
Yeah,
that's what pushes us. But any work, any skill that you have is just a tool. What is important is what impact are you having on people with that tool. So I don't know, I think in the future, like I said, we're going to have more jobs that are going to be specialized towards people, because the mundane jobs, the jobs that really like people really don't like doing, and that I think that causes a lot of like depression and just like kind of feelings of unworthy, are jobs like that. Because in a sense, I believe at least that as human beings, our capability to have a mind that is able to solve problems constantly wants to solve problems constantly. We constantly want to be able to come up with new solutions. That's something that is natural to us. So thereby, we constantly want to seek that. And if jobs that are easy for human beings get taken away, and we have the time to actually develop our resources and our problem-solving capabilities, I think the future for humanity is actually very bright. But for that, it's going to take a lot of adjustment. It's going to take a lot of rediscoveries. And we're also going to need people that are there to help people grow. So if you work on yourself right now, I believe you're going to be a very important tool for the future. Because a lot of people are going to go through the same things which you went through when you started to, I guess, have some self-realizations or went through dark moments. So,
Good. I think we can wrap it up here for
Yes.
today. Thank you all very much for listening. And again, just a reminder, we're open for questions. We're open for feedback.
Topics as well.
Yeah, topics that you want us to speak about. And yeah, we're very happy that you guys are listening to us. Thank you very much.
Yep.
We appreciate it, and we hope that it will encourage you guys to have discussions, to have open conversations with people around you, and to really start forming good and positive communities with your friends, with your family.
And with yourself, more importantly.
With yourself.
But yeah, and we will see you guys next week.
Yes.
Bye-bye.